Getting out of the heat and into the aircon in the cinema felt like a nice little treat this week, and the movie being a Nicolas Cage movie is the icing on the cake for me. This is Longlegs, 2024 horror movie. I'm going to try and avoid spoilers here, but maybe this review might be better if you've seen the movie. I'm not sure. That's kind of up to you. But before I dive in, I'm pretty sure it's an R-rated film. On a scary scale, it's pretty creepy. And there's a little bit of, gore and stuff like that in there. So I know this isn't always I do talk about horror movies, but I'm just letting you know up top so that you kind of know maybe this isn't for you and you want to sort of wait for my next more vintage review, and that's totally fine. So Longlegs tells the story of Lee Harker, played by Maika Monroe, who is a newly minted FBI agent in the 90s. Early on, we learn that she has hunches sometimes and that she may have a psychic or intuitive ability. When the mysterious serial killer Longlegs, played by Nicolas Cage, strikes again, Agent Carter, played by Blair Underwood, decides to try out Harker's abilities on the case, and a game of cat and mouse begins. But Harker starts to wonder if Longlegs is a serial killer or if the case might be one of the occult. Being set in the 90s and having an FBI agent and the paranormal, you might think this movie is reminiscent of an X-Files episode. And indeed, there is a portrait of Bill Clinton featured in some shots in the FBI headquarters, which did kind of make me think of A.D. Skinner's office. But this movie has more of a Lynchian, maybe Twin Peaks feel. This is a wild, creepy, unsettling, and very stylish film. Perhaps either comparison is unfair since this film had such an original feel to it. That may be down to director Oz Perkins, or Osgood Perkins II, who is a writer-director known for Gretel and Hansel from 2020, The Black Coat's Daughter from 2015, which I remember liking, I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House from 2016. He's also working on The Monkey with Stephen King, which comes out next year, which sounds awesome. Or if you're not a horror aficionado, he's also Dorky David in Legally Blonde, where he makes this awkward face, which I love. I like that movie. It's so good. He's appeared as an actor in quite a few things. He's a very talented guy. He's actually the son of Anthony Perkins, who played Norman Bates in Hitchcock's Psycho, and he played the young version of that character that his father famously played in 1983's Psycho 2. Something about the very distinctive style of this movie, its assured direction, and the excellent writing make me feel really excited for what Oz Perkins will do next. So Maika Monroe, she stars as Special Agent Lee Harker. She gives such an interesting performance in this movie. I always remember her from It Follows, but she was also in Watcher and The Guest. I always like her in things. Her IMDb page really foregrounds that she started out as a professional kite surfer, which is just interesting point for you there. In this film, as Lee Harker, she has a really different performance. At first, I was kind of wondering what she was doing. Like, she was very awkward, sort of a little bit strange. And then I realized it's the whole film. Like, nothing about the film is at ease or normal. She's very tense. You have to really watch her and sort of see what she's feeling and thinking. And it was such a great choice to have her this way. The whole thing is uncanny, but sometimes it's funny. She's not unrelatable or overly enigmatic, or she's not kind of overplaying it. She's just a little bit like a female Dorky David, actually, which was really cool. Her character's last name, Harker, is the same as that of one of the main characters in Dracula, of course, the solicitor who goes to Transylvania at the start of the book. Harker does not know what she's getting into. Harker in Dracula doesn't know what he's getting into entering the castle, and Lee Harker does not know what she's getting into when she sort of joins the FBI and is drawn into this case. Also, while Longlegs is the name of a different character in the movie, the choice to dress Harker in most scenes in high-waisted pants that are hemmed a little too much, almost like she couldn't buy pants long enough or has outgrown them, implies that she has long legs too. And I loved that little costume detail. Yeah, of course, Longlegs is played by Nicolas Cage, who also produced this film. The name Longlegs could, of course, refer to the spider, which is one of the more benign and less scary of the arachnid family. I am such an arachnophobic. It's embarrassing. Or maybe it's not embarrassing. I'll proudly be arachnophobic. Anyway, the daddy longlegs spider is one that people often allow to live unmolested in their house, which has an interesting parallel to this film. There's an urban legend that they're actually the most venomous of spiders, but their teeny little fangs can't break the skin and kill us. That's not actually true, but it adds something in relation to this film's ideas without spoiling anything for you. What immediately came to mind for me, though, was the book Daddy Longlegs from 1912 by Gene Webster. This novel is a classic text. It's been adapted for films a bunch of times, still in print. It's written in an epistolary form, meaning it's a series of letters that make up the story. Part of Longlegs' MO is his coded letters to the FBI, much like the Zodiac Killer. Dracula, incidentally, is also an epistolary novel. So more pertinently, the book is about a smart, talented orphan who catches the eye of one of the board members of the orphanage, who mysteriously sponsors her education. She calls him Daddy Longlegs because she never sees his face, only his long legs. He looks out for her from afar for many years as she grows up and goes away to college. If you can see some sort of connections here. As mentioned, the coded messages are like those of serial killer Zodiac, a case that remains unsolved, though there are interesting developments now and then in that case. It looks like one of his letters was decoded earlier this year, but I digress. The choice of families by the killer reminded me of another serial killer, maybe Eron's, but there was another I read in one of John Douglas's books, I think, and I couldn't find it easily to reference it. And it also, Googling serial killers is not my favorite way to spend time. So I kind of just dropped it. But maybe you're kind of screaming it at the screen now. I don't know. Either way, I liked that this felt a little thought out, is my point. To move on from that, this is the perfect role for Nicolas Cage. He chews up the scenery and I am here for it. He's so good. I love Nicolas Cage. The makeup and costume design they've used for him it's awesome. He's all pale and bloated and creepy, kind of like a maggot, with strangely distorted and sort of pasty features. He's camp and loud at times, but there's a fearfulness to this madness. Like, sometimes it's funny, but it also really got that barely suppressed glee and rage of that, those great sort of movie evil geniuses that are sort of, they're funny, but they're also just, it gets under your skin. It's such a fine line to walk to kind of hit that note. And while we love and live for Nicolas Cage freakouts, this is where that kind of performance really shines. The tone of this film is so eerie and strange, and that's how Nicolas Cage plays this. It's just chef's kiss. I also liked the obsession with the color white that this character has. Usually you think, gothic, black, dark spaces, that's kind of horror movie stuff. And that's a thing here too, what lurks in the shadows, in basements, in the woods, at night, all of that stuff. But in this film, our killer loves the color white. He wears all white. We first see him in the snow. All his victims live in white houses. That's his theme. Perhaps because his victims are young, pure, or perfect angels. I think he sort of mentions or calls them that at some point in the movie. It's a great choice because it sets him apart from other characters and characterizations of other characters like this, and it shows us that maybe he sees himself as doing something good in his own mind. He's a white hat and not a black hat. So there's a lot you could say about this character, and I just think that's a great aspect of this film. I think everyone in this film gives a really excellent performance. I liked Blair Underwood as Agent Carter. He felt very down to earth and maybe sort of the straight man in all of the nightmare or sort of dreamlike stuff. Michelle Choi Lee too is really good, but I wanted to give a little mention to Alicia Witt. She's been in many films and things over the course of her career. More recently, she's become a staple of Hallmark movies. Christmas movies. She was also in Urban Legend, though, back in 1998, which makes her somewhat of a scream queen. So I kind of loved the choice of casting her. It was nice to see her performance here, where she got to do something a little different. Not just because of it being a horror film, but the way her character as Lee Harker's mom is designed, and also drawing on those two sides of her career, the sort of chocolate box Hallmark and then 90s teen slasher. Like, it's kind of, I don't know, I love that choice. She's styled in a 70s hippie style, a little bit like a Manson's sister, in crochet, hair center part, long and straight, and she lives in a bit of a hoarder home. No bright Hallmark movie houses here. And her character seems to maybe be a little bit ill or a shut-in. She's religious. She's sort of not all there in some ways, in the sense of being out of touch. So it was good to get to see her have this chance to do a role like this. It's a little bit different. She can be a little bit camp and weird and creepy, showing another side of her range and ability. So I just thought that was really cool. As I've mentioned, the film has excellent costume design and a certain style to it, set in the 90s, but it has scenes in the 70s as well. So it has a bit of a softly retro look a lot of the time, but it's also much more than that. I've mentioned Twin Peaks, and I think Oz Perkins definitely has allowed, or is allowed in this film, to let his creative side come out a little bit more and to create a bit of a personal directing style here, much like Lynch has done in his career. I really love it. I think I keep saying uncanny, but like that's kind of the word for it. It's more about telling a good story and sort of telling it well and interestingly than strict accuracy or realism. It works so well for the strangeness of this story. It's almost a bit nightmare or dreamlike. Or even, when you haven't slept for a while and it's almost like your subconscious is awake when it shouldn't be. It's kind of got that feel. I liked how the spaces the characters were in were so often empty of other people. Harker is often alone in a space. I don't know if I saw one extra in the whole film. I mean, there were a few scenes with a conference of agents or that kind of thing where it makes sense that there would be a lot of people, but there's no one else on the road ever. Harker never calls for backup. We hear her neighbors, but we don't see them or even see their house. When she makes a call from a payphone, no one else is in that walkway. At an asylum, we hear and see no other patients in the room or in the whole space. During a test by the FBI, Harker is alone in the room and only a voice is heard, setting the test. So I loved this. It makes the scenes feel stylized sometimes. It kind of adds to Maika Monroe's characterization of herself, of her character, and also a sense of her sort of being alone or out of her depth or, that kind of thing. So yeah, it makes the scenes feel kind of stylized sometimes. It gives it an odd feeling, not like normal life. Yet there were moments that felt very much real and normal. And that just added to this unease in the other scenes. The film goes from day to night between scenes in a way that was cohesive but not consecutive. By that, I mean we're not going from day to night within a scene, which would be jarring, but the characters pay no attention to the time and days don't seem to pass like normal. Like Carter and Harker are talking during the day and then they go to investigate a scene and it's night. It's that kind of thing. You could argue it's night because they drove there, and it doesn't not make sense, but it's just that it's not like the movie is trying to tell us it's day or night, more like the choice is informed by the light that is best for the cinematography of the scene that they want to portray. It's never early or late, it's just either day or night, and Harker has trouble sleeping. The locations chosen really added to this. Some of the places they shot were so interesting to me. The film is shot in Vancouver and it has a Pacific Northwest look, I think. Twin Peaks is set in Pacific Northwest. X-Files early seasons were famously shot here. But then I guess a lot of things have been, so maybe that's not a good argument. I don't want to belabor the point, especially about those two references, but the film is meant to be Oregon set and it sometimes has a flat farmland sort of look to it with houses not too close together and a bit of a country feel, small town feel. But There are also the halls of the FBI, which look like they're from the 70s, haven't been updated since the 70s. Windowless, wood-paneled walls. They feel more like the basement of a hospital somewhere, but like in the best possible way. A government building for sure, but not the FBI that you might think of if you're thinking of, things set in that kind of government agency. It doesn't have that look. One of my favorite locations was the weird house that Harker lives in. It's not exactly a log cabin, but it's made of sort of wood bars. It's like a wooden box perched in the middle of nowhere, sort of in a foresty setting with big glass windows, but no curtains anywhere. So she's just on display in this box. And because it's wooden panels on the inside and the inside's very sort of dark and kind of closes in. So it's kind of a very unique style and an odd but great location. Such a great choice. The movie moves at quite a nice clip. I love a well-paced film, especially horror. I think it kind of needs it. I will switch off if I'm guessing what's coming or nothing happens for too long. But I love the way the film just slows down to rest on some takes or some shots. Characters sometimes, move out of shot and the shot just holds. It plays with you because normally when this happens in a horror film, we know to expect or to look for something lurking. And sometimes there is something and sometimes there isn't, which makes you feel tense and watchful as you're watching it. It's also reminiscent of those 70s era long takes. Very 70s, those long takes. The lighting is also used to such great effect like this as well. The darker night scenes look like they're shot, on film. They're a little too dark sometimes. Sometimes you sort of almost want to lean in to kind of get a better look at what's happening. And then at other times, torchlight plays across high ceilings. I just love this. It was such a good visual style. Really visually evocative, interesting. It's really using the screen to engage you and thinking about shots and lighting. Not just following what you're meant to do, like the rules of filmmaking. It's kind of playing with those and I love it. This kind of style could be sloppy or annoying or even look cheap, but the attention to detail is there. It feels very planned. It always makes sense and is placed to make meaning rather than looking like a practical choice. Sometimes the film is almost baroque in these details. We're told X marks the spot at one point, but the X's are sideways crucifixes. A gaffer-taped X would be fine, but this is something else and it kind of adds symbolism. It's creepy. There's a Raggedy Ann doll in the background of one shot. You might want to look out for where that is. It's a blink and you'll miss it kind of thing, but a Raggedy Ann doll is what the original Annabelle doll is, famously. Rather than have one theme or a motif, the film gives us layers of Zodiac killer, creepy symbols, kind of occult symbols, dolls and doppelgangers, religious symbolism, satanic panic, even the CIA's Stargate project, their psychic program, is hinted at. It's stuff that anyone who loves creepy paranormal stories will pick up on and kind of love. It's classic stuff, but it's not too much. It's like little Easter eggs or detailed background. It works. It just works really well. It's also layered with 70s music here and there, which was really good. I'm sure you could probably, dive into that a bit more, the choice of songs and stuff like that. But yeah, maybe a little final note about this movie is the marketing campaign. This kind of passed me by really because I avoid film marketing like the plague. I find modern trailers just reveal all the major plot points and spoil the movie for me. So I really try really hard to not see them. But here, the indie production and distribution company Neon decided to try something sort of a little Blair Witch inspired, which is fun, and created a layered campaign of early cryptic teaser trailers that didn't actually reveal the film's title, coded messages in later trailers, and in the Seattle Times, they posted something hinting kind of at the Zodiac, and a link to a faux serial killer site about the murders in the film. So very 90s to do that. There was a call-in number as well featuring Nicolas Cage in a recorded message. So you could call the number and hear him as his Longlegs character. I love all of this. I think this is so in line with the style of the film and what it's all about and the details of it all. So I thought that kind of deserved an honorable mention. So I don't want to overhype this film to you, but I just had a great all-around experience. I used to be a regular moviegoer. I mean, obviously I watch movies all the time, but I used to go to the cinema all the time. But I got fatigued by franchises just taking over everything, and a lot of cookie cutter films aimed at the widest possible audience, all of that stuff. There's been a lot of great films that have come out in the last couple of years, don't get me wrong. But just as far as going to the cinema, I mean. Yeah, quite a few films I planned on seeing, but I didn't bother after I saw the trailers in the cinema and the whole film was ruined. I think I just kind of knew exactly where it was going, what was going to happen. I hate that. So yeah, but I had a really good time with this movie. It delivered for me as a horror film. It delivered for me as a Nicolas Cage film, and as a film with something fun and original about it, like its own style, playing around with the form. Yeah, you just really felt the director's voice and style here, and I had fun with all the little stylistic details and the performances. And I love that it left me with some questions to think about. I love that when you leave the cinema and you kind of talk about the film on the way home, you know, that kind of thing. It's very wild, strange, it's madcap. Sometimes it's really funny, sometimes it's really scary. It's very camp. It's a weird little film, and I'm here for it. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to Oz Perkins and Stephen King's film next year. Yeah, it was so much fun to go and see this. So yeah, I hope this is a sign that we're going to get more films like this, hopefully. Sign of the times, hopefully. So yeah, have you seen this? Did you love this film? Hate this film? Do you love this director's work or any of the actors' work? Did you notice some details I didn't mention here that you wanted to tell me about? Let me know in the comments if you want to. And yeah, thank you for joining me and listening to me talk about this movie. You can check out some of my other videos. I also have another channel and socials, so you can find links below if you want more of that. And if you want to hang out again, remember to like and subscribe. And you can always leave a comment, let me know what you thought, or let me know what else you might want to see. Thank you.